All right, what's up, everybody? I got Clayton back with me. Figured we'd go back to the college well here to help us with our bracket. This pod's gonna be all about the first round. Just want to not going to project everything and go through all of your predictions, but want to just rip through the first round and see where we can find some upsets, where we can find some value. But first, overall takes on the bracket. Did you think they got it right for the most part?
Yeah, I think you kind of can't go wrong with the one seeds that they put there. Every single one seed besides Houston and Duke, I think the SEC in general, I'm kind of iffy on. I do understand completely why Florida and Auburn were put in those spots, but I'm just not sure if I can trust most of the SEC teams to go super deep into the tournament. So,
yeah, I didn't think the bubble. I was surprised North Carolina snuck in there.
that too, that's a big part.
And Xavier, Texas. What's your take on that game, real quick, before we do some of these other games? Do you have a take on the North Carolina, San Diego State, or Xavier, Texas?
Honestly, can't say much about UNC, San Diego State. I do think UNC getting in. Saw something about their AD being like the head of the selection committee. I think that could definitely play a part in it. Texas, I haven't really liked all year. I think all the SEC teams that got in were seeded higher than they should be. So just going off gut reaction, I don't like them, but overall can't say a whole lot about either of those games.
All right, well, let's rip through it. I apologize in advance, guys, for looking down, but I have not memorized brackets, and there's no other way to do this besides kind of looking down here. So we got Auburn is going to face. It doesn't really matter who they're going to face here. Let's go to Louisville versus Creighton. I'm surprised Louisville got the 8 seed. I've been saying, now that I thought they were going to be closer to a 4 or 5 seed. How do you see that matchup, Louisville and Creighton?
Yeah, I like Louisville just because it feels like they're seated too low. This is off rip one of those instances where I was talking about the seeding just being wrong. Like it's the right teams but the wrong seeds. And from what I've seen about Creighton, they're kind of live and die by the 3, which can be beneficial in March Madness. But I think Louisville's a much better team. 8 seed is definitely way too low for them.
Creighton does not foul. The thing I love, they're like notoriously the least fouling team over the past handful of years. That should be a really good game. UC San Diego against Michigan is a really popular 12-5 upset. Are you on board with that, or are you rolling with Michigan?
I do love UC San Diego. They're super hot right now. I think it's the first year they're eligible for the tournament too, which is pretty cool. But Michigan just won the Big Ten. It's kind of too hard for me to pick against them right now. Last year I was a little I just went too much with the 12-5 upsets. I don't think we actually had any 12-5 upsets last year. So as much as I like UC San Diego, Michigan's just too hot for me.
Gotcha. A&M and Yale. Yale beat Auburn last year. A&M, I know you've seen a bunch of them in the SEC. Thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I don't think Yale is like as good as they've been in previous years, but I also don't think A&M is going to go super far in the tournament. I've seen a lot of questions around their turnover margin, which I think plays a big role when it comes time for March. So I think A&M will win this game, but I definitely don't see them going too much farther than that.
It's always a good bet. One of these teams, whether Xavier, Texas, North Carolina, or San Diego State, 2 of those teams are going to win, and then they get the momentum. I'm still not sure I love this first 4 thing. I think it's kind of dumb. But anyway, with that in mind, Ole Miss is sitting there waiting. So how do we feel about Ole Miss in this situation, whether they're going to face North Carolina or San Diego State?
Yeah, I'm not sure who they'll face out of those 2, and I'm not a huge fan of Ole Miss as a 6 seed. Like I was saying, I think the SEC teams are just a little too high seated.
What type of team is Ole Miss? What style of play do they have?
They've got a lot of like explosive players on offense. I think Padula, his name is. He's pretty tough. They're well coached too, so that's going to be a big thing. But I don't know. The SEC, it's hard to read this year, but Ole Miss is just one of the ones that they haven't gotten enough of the big time wins for me.
I don't see
them going super far.
Iowa State's going to be without one of their best players. They're going to play Lipscomb. Do we know anything about Lipscomb?
I've looked into Lipscomb a little bit. I think they're a really good shooting team, but as a 14, I just don't see them beating Iowa State. Iowa State definitely, I think we expect them to be a little bit better at the beginning of the year, kind of slowed down towards the middle. But I want to say they picked it up a little bit towards the end. I don't think Lipscomb should be a problem.
two of the best college point guards in the country are going to be featured in the Marquette, New Mexico game. Everybody's been talking about that. Should be a great game. Do you have a strong opinion as the 7-10 matchup?
Honestly, I can't say much about this one. I'm surprised New Mexico lost in their conference tournament. Obviously, they were a big favorite. I think they lost to Boise State, who obviously lost to Colorado State. But I don't know enough about either of these teams to make a 7-10 prediction here.
And now Michigan State, everybody's going to take Michigan State. They're going to be pissed off. Is Bryant the team? I think they've been to the tournament before. Bryant's the 15. Any chance that game's close, or you like Michigan State to roll?
Yeah, I like Michigan State. I feel like Bryant is one of those low seeds that you'll see often popping up, though, which is pretty fun.
Right. All right, we're going to do the West last. Let's slip over to the East. Yeah, Duke looks like they gave them not the toughest route to the Final Four. Let's see. Their 8-9 matchup's going to be Mississippi State and Baylor. Help me out here. Ole Miss is explosive, well coached. Where's Mississippi State at?
I like Mississippi State a lot. I've always liked them more than Ole Miss. I'm a big fan of Hubbard. I think he's probably my favorite player that's not on South Carolina that I like to watch out of the SEC. So I definitely like them beating Baylor. I don't have a huge reason on why I like Mississippi State, but I've been pretty big on them all year. I think they've got a lot of potential on offense. They were really good defensively in some of the games that I watched. But I can't speak on their ratings overall.
If they're a 10-point underdog, let's just say against Duke in the next round, do you think that would be a live bet? Like, do they match up pretty well with Duke?
I think so. I definitely think it's something that Duke would still win, but there have just been a lot of times where I think Duke has looked pretty beatable this year, which is hard to say because at the same time, I just don't really see anyone beating Duke.
Yeah, I was going to say Duke, I hate saying this, but Duke, they're just big, long. They play ball the way that yeah, I hate it. All right, so you got Mississippi State beating Baylor. What's the 5-12 here? Oregon Liberty. Oregon always plays good in the tournament. They're so well coached. Liberty's good though. Liberty's really solid. Talk to me here. What do you like?
Yeah, I don't hate Liberty. Overall, I think the Conference USA is pretty weak. And Oregon, I think their record isn't the greatest, but they have a ton of Q1 wins. So I like them at 5-12 there.
Yeah, they have a ton of Q1 wins. They beat Maryland earlier in the year. They're good. They got the big guy. Is it Battle or Battle? Something like that. Anyhow, I want to bet against Arizona. Can you help me out here? Akron, they're a big underdog for 4-13. I felt like the line came out 13.5. So I don't know much about Akron. I like the MAC though. I always feel like the MAC is live. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I can't say much for either team. It does seem like Arizona is one of those teams that always doesn't do well in March. I thought the Big 12 was decently strong this year, though, so I just can't pick Akron.
Yeah, last year it was supposed to be North Carolina and Arizona. Everybody had that as the 1-2. That was supposed to be Caleb Love revenge against Carolina and all that jazz. And it turned out that Alabama won that region. So speaking of Alabama, they're going to be the 2 in this. Let's go. Before we get there, BYU VCU. I really, really like VCU. I know that's not like the hottest take. It's 11-6 matchup, but how do you see this game?
This is kind of like the UC San Diego Michigan match for me, where I think VCU is probably the best 11, but BYU has also just been so hot recently, and they're coming out of a pretty good conference. I would probably pick VCU against most of the other 6 seeds. Like if they were against Ole Miss, I'd probably take them. But I think BYU is hot enough right now to where they keep rolling.
I'm bitter with BYU. They laid the egg though against Houston. They just couldn't score. Yeah. I don't know. That to me, VCU can play that type of defense. I thought
is VCU a defensive based team?
Yeah, they always are. They're going to press. They're going to get in you. BYU, they like to be comfortable. Some of those softer teams in the Big 12, I think they did better against, but we'll see. Wisconsin, Montana. You a Montana expert?
I don't know anything. Yeah, I don't know anything about Montana. I think I got to pick Wisconsin, although I don't think Wisconsin is going to go super far. None of the Big 10 teams to me were like super amazing. It kind of feels like someone's just got to win all the games at the end of the day. So,
okay.
I'm not as high on them overall.
Yeah, I hope that, well, especially for Maryland's sake, but winning the Big Ten tournament or losing in the Big Ten final, playing that extra game, it tends to, gotta go back and look at some of the statistics. I probably should do that before I start blabbing about it. But to me, I'd rather have the off day and be a little bit more ready. But we'll see. Alabama's the 2. Robert Morris, they're always in the tournament, feels like. Alabama, Grant Nelson might not play. Do you know much about him? His status?
I don't know. I actually didn't even know he was injured. This is definitely when I'm going to take Alabama in. But Alabama overall in the tournament, I'm just not sure what to think about them because they've got such an explosive offense. They played a super high pace, which is good for the tournament, but they've also just looked so rough defensively in some games. So
let me ask you, because they dominate Kentucky in the second half, and then Florida just steamrolls them. Was that more about Florida or Alabama, you think?
I didn't watch that game, to be honest with you, so I'm not going to be able to give you a confident answer.
Florida is just – we'll get to Florida in a minute, but yeah.
Was Alabama, not getting to the rim, not shooting the ball well? What do you think happened in that one?
Yeah, it's just so Florida is dominant. I didn't realize how deep they are, and I think that's the main thing, is they just keep throwing guys. And so they just kind of wear you out. It was an anomaly – when Tennessee, everything was kind of set up. The only real blemish for Florida was when Tennessee basically suffocated them in the rematch after Florida beat them by 30 a few weeks earlier in the season. But besides that game, Florida has just looked unbeatable is the wrong word, right? Obviously, UConn kind of set a different standard these past couple of years. Florida's not at that level, but I do think they're clearly the best team. All right, let's keep rolling here. Where did I leave off? I left off with Alabama beating Robert Morris, so that kind of finishes us up there. And we head to the Midwest. I'm fading Houston, probably not in the 1-16 matchup. They're going to get the winner of Gonzaga and Georgia. Gonzaga for an 8-9. Gonzaga, 6.5-point favorites to start off. Who do you like there?
Yeah, I like Gonzaga, and it sucks because I like Georgia a lot too. I don't think 9 seed's a terrible pick for them, but 8 just seems too high for Gonzaga. Analytically, I think they're one of the best teams. I think they've made the past 9 Sweet 16s, something crazy like that. So it's kind of hard to bet against them in March, but
I'm taking Gonzaga.
I like Gonzaga a lot.
I like Gonzaga to beat Houston if they get
really.
Yeah, I just don't like Houston. I don't think they. I think they're a worse version of the past couple of years. They just keep playing the same ISO ball at the end of the game. The game's tight, and if a team is just as physical, but in Gonzaga's case, the pedigree, that feels like a great matchup. All right. Clemson. Clemson made a hell of a run last year. That was I was drawing a blank for a second. Last year's regional went from North Carolina, Arizona to Clemson, Alabama, right? And Clemson's good. Clemson, they're well coached. They retool. The ACC just sucks. Do we know anything about McNeese State? Is that a squad?
Yeah, McNeese is one of my favorite Cinderellas, but another chance. Or another situation where I really just don't like their matchup. Clemson, I think, is better than a lot of people are thinking about. I think they're top 25 in both offensive and defensive efficiency nationally, which I think pretty much only 1 and 2 seeds are also in that category. So as much as I like McNeese, I think they force a lot of turnovers. I'm not sure how they are on offense, but I know McNeese is a really good defensive team. I like Clemson in that matchup.
All right. Can you jump on the High Point bandwagon? Because that's my favorite. I will fade Purdue. I'm such an emotional bet. Once I don't like a team or a player, I'm stuck on it. I can't stand Purdue. And High Point, this is their first time getting there. Where are we at? Do you know anything about High Point? Because I still don't know anything about them. I just wanted to.
Yeah, I've been looking into them a lot recently too. They're probably my favorite possible Cinderella in the whole tournament. Okay. I think they're number 2 in the nation in offensive efficiency. They shoot the ball really well, shoot the 3 ball really well. I think defense could hurt them, but Purdue in March, can't trust them. I don't think Purdue's as strong as they've been in previous years. They're not going to control the glass as much without Edey. I mean, they're still a talented team with a lot of blue chip recruits, but I do really like High Point. I think if you're picking any 13-4, it's got to be this one.
Oh, man. Sweet. All right. And we got bottom of the bracket, Illinois. All right. Maryland makes Illinois look like the worst team in basketball. So I am biased. I don't know if you saw any of the Maryland-Illinois game, but Maryland is winning 57-31 in the quarterfinals of the Big Ten at halftime. Just demolished them. It's probably not a good matchup for Illinois, but outside of seeing those 2 games against Maryland, Illinois is playing pretty good basketball. They get stuck at the 6th seed. I'm going to bet against them, especially if it's Xavier that beats Texas. How do you feel about Illinois? Have you seen much of them, and do you like Xavier or Texas to knock them off?
Yeah, I haven't seen much of them coming out of the Big Ten with the circumstances that you're talking about. I definitely don't like them as much as I did 20 seconds ago. Texas, I definitely don't like. I think Illinois would beat Texas, but I think if Xavier can win that match, which I think they do, I think they have a good chance at beating Illinois. It's not one that I'm like confident enough on.
Yeah, Illinois is just God, Maryland just steamrolled them. So yeah. All right, let's finish up this bracket with. All right, can we bet on Troy, because I'm mad at Kentucky because I feel like they stole the 3 seed from Maryland. I just thought Maryland was locked into a 3 seed. I didn't even factor Kentucky in as the possible conversation. And they lost to Alabama by 1,000,000 points. Like, Alabama beat them 99-70 in the SEC tournament. Am I off base with Kentucky being a 3 seed? Start with that. Like, I can't believe they're a 3 seed.
No, yeah, this is, again, just the SEC teams they're ranked too high in this tournament for the most part. For a 3 seed for Kentucky, it just seems pretty blasphemous, especially with how the past few weeks have gone. Troy, I don't necessarily think that they're going to beat Kentucky, but it does kind of feel like the committee's setting up Kentucky for another 3-14 upset, because I think Troy has been super hot recently, but it's just kind of hard to.
Kentucky lost to Oakland the other year, like not last year, the year before, right?
I think that was last year.
Last year, I can't keep track of this stuff.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
All right. Well, if I Google it, then we'll be here for another extra 5 minutes. All right. I really want to bet against Tennessee. So another SEC matchup. And that's the other weird thing. They set up an SEC, Kentucky, Tennessee situation. I don't know. I don't like Tennessee. You can tell me if I'm wrong, but do we know? Wofford, right? Is that how you pronounce it? Not Wofford. It's Wofford, right?
Yeah.
Wofford. That's your neck of the woods. Isn't that South Carolina?
Yeah, they're over in Spartanburg, not too far.
Right. Talk to me. Wofford, Tennessee. What's that look like?
Yeah, I don't know much about Wofford besides the fact that they were like 5 or 6 seed in their conference tournament and just kind of got hot. So maybe that'll play a benefit for them. But yeah, they weren't expected to win. They may have been like 3 or 4, but they were not one of the favorites. Correct me if I'm wrong. Kind of seems like you don't like the slow-paced offenses, because Tennessee and Houston, I've heard that about both of them.
Yeah.
Is that your thing?
I love defense. I think that Tennessee – I think Tennessee's defense is actually better than Houston. So I would say the thing that I have trouble with Tennessee is that they just make every shot seems very difficult for them. So it's not necessarily that it's slow pace as much as it turns into the ISO ball with 1 or 2 guys, and they just suck at shooting. They just feel like they're just not a good shooting team. And I think one of my theories going into a tournament like this is it's a brand new arena. And if you're not a great shooting team, it's like all of a sudden the first half is like Wofford winning 29-24 or something weird like that. Tennessee seems prime for that, and so does Houston. So yeah, all right. Let's. But you. I'm sorry, I didn't get your take on Tennessee. You think not besides against Wofford here? Do you think Tennessee matches up well with Kentucky in the second round?
Yeah, I think they've got a pretty easy path. Like, I think they can get past Kentucky personally. I think they've got a pretty easy path, at least to the, Sweet 16, Elite 8. After that, like you were saying, I mean, I've never really thought about that new arena idea, but yeah, if they don't come out hot, it's going to be difficult for them to play from behind against any high seeds.
Yeah, I would like to see the shooting splits with Tennessee. I imagine they shoot better at home. I know most teams do, but something to look at. And another thing to look at, we haven't talked about this on this pod, but where they're playing, what time they're playing, a lot of factors here go into the first couple of rounds. All right, let's finish out with the West. I've been bitching now for days about this, so I'll try to keep the bitching to a minimum here. But it's by far the toughest bracket, and Maryland is just stuck smack dab in the middle of a whole bunch of elite programs and a lot going on. So Florida is the 1 seed. Talk to me about Oklahoma. You've seen a lot of them. UConn is the defending 2-time champ. Should be, I mean, that's a late game on Thursday, so that's worth staying up for. Talk to me about this one.
Yeah, I think Oklahoma, if I was making the seeds, they would be a 10 or 11. I think nine's just too high for them. I kind of have seen in a lot of bracketologies that one of the 8 or 9 SEC teams was going to end up playing UConn first round, and I just don't like any of them really against UConn, so give me UConn there.
Yeah, Florida.
I don't think they could beat Florida second round. I just don't think they could do that this year. But
which team matches real quick with Florida? Who matches up the best with Florida? Is it Auburn? Is it Duke? Is it Tennessee? Which team does Florida be like, that's not the team I really want to play at the end of this thing?
I gotta say Duke, just because we've already seen them beat Auburn. I'm pretty sure they beat them on the road this year. So Duke just being, they having some of the most talent, most athleticism, biggest guys. It really is any team to have to go against that, no matter what they're doing specifically with the basketball. I don't think you want to be up against them at the end.
Yeah. I've been super impressed with Florida. They just methodically – I didn't realize how big and strong they were until I feel like that Tennessee game just lit a fire the way Tennessee beat the crap out of them. I remember watching that game. I had Florida. It was really tight at the first half. Florida just couldn't score anymore. Tennessee was just – and then I've been hate betting Tennessee ever since. So, all right, 5-12. We think this Haggerty guy's going to play for Memphis. I mean, he's fucking awesome. And Memphis is awesome. But Colorado State's won 10 in a row. But – nobody's happy here. I'm telling you, nobody in this bracket's happy. Florida fans aren't happy. They got to be like, wait, we got to play UConn after UConn wins a game. They're feeling that nostalgia. Memphis is like, why are we a 5 seed? Colorado State's like, why do we have to play Memphis? So how does this work out for you, Memphis, Colorado State?
Yeah, if Memphis is healthy, I think they've got a good shot. I don't think the American was that good as a conference this year, and I love some momentum coming in. Of any of the 12-5 games, this is probably the one where I like the 12 to beat the 5 the most.
Real quick, Mountain West, Colorado State, I know they beat the crap out of Boise State. How does San Diego State get in over Boise State? And didn't Boise State just beat San Diego State?
I don't know if they just beat them or not. I mean, I would have to assume it's regular season play. I wasn't involved with the Mountain West at all, but
anyway. All right, so you like Colorado State here against Memphis potentially?
Yeah, I think so. I think I got to pick a 12-5, and that's the one I'm most confident in.
All right, you'll hurt my feelings if you like Grand Canyon, but if you do, I can't believe Maryland has to play Grand Canyon. I've been talking about this. This is unbelievable to me. Grand Canyon is great. Do you remember the Grand Canyon Alabama game from last year in the whatever it was, the round of 32?
I don't know. Did Grand Canyon get an upset last year?
They beat St. Mary's, and then they
oh shoot.
Yeah, they beat St. Mary's.
I don't remember that happening for some reason.
They gave Alabama a really good run for their money. They actually played Alabama. They played good defense against Alabama. They just could not make a shot. It's a really good game. All right. What do you think? Grand Canyon, Maryland?
Yeah, actually all year, Maryland was one of my favorite teams from the Big Ten. So I'm sure you're happy to hear that. Grand Canyon, I don't think they were the favorite to win their conference. I think they were second coming into the tournament. Other than that, I don't know a whole lot about them. Obviously, you seem pretty worried, but I've liked Maryland for most of the year. So I'm going to take them there, and I'll probably have them going further too.
Kind of put you on the spot with Maryland now that you like them so much. How do you think their prospects go to the NBA? Derek Queen in particular and Rodney Rice. Do you think Rodney Rice plays in the NBA next year? He's only a sophomore, but the way he shoots the three is, I feel like, NBA ready. And I know Queen's going to go to the NBA. How do you see both of them projecting?
Honestly, when I'm looking at this stuff, a lot of what I look at is like athleticism and size. If he's a good player, I think he's got it. He's got the potential to. At 6'4", 198 as a guard, I mean, I haven't watched a whole lot of Maryland games, but I think that's got good size, good athleticism. There's some guys that you watch in college basketball. Like you look at Ian Shiflin on Clemson, great player, but I don't think he'll ever work out in the NBA just because he's not that athletic type.
Exactly. There's so many guys that project out to the NBA that you don't really know of unless you're really in the weeds of college basketball. I just thought the way you were talking about Maryland that maybe you saw a little bit more. But all right, so we got Maryland. And then at the bottom of the bracket, we got all right. So Missouri Drake. My gut was telling me Drake, another SEC team. Where's Missouri at for you?
I actually was really high on Missouri throughout the year. I kind of felt like they were the South Carolina of last year, of this year. Now, that being said, South Carolina was a 6 and lost to the 11. But I think Drake is kind of the team that we're always told to pick in March Madness every year. Like everyone's always like pick Drake for the upset, and then it never ends up happening. And given that I've been so excited about Missouri this year, I'm going to take them moving on.
I do think it was big that Drake's second half against Bradley, because I had Bradley. Drake just suffocated them. Missouri wants to run up and down the court, though, right?
Yeah, they do. They'll put up a lot of points in some of those games.
It'll be interesting. That's a really big contrast there. That's just like the VCU BYU game. And the committee did a good job with that by basically giving us polar opposites in the 6-11. The 3-14 Texas Tech. We know anything about North Carolina Wilmington? That's around your way, kind of.
Yeah, it's not too far. I don't know anything about them, though. I want to say they weren't a favorite coming into their conference tournament either, though. So could be something on their part.
What about Texas Tech? Have you seen much of them?
I can't say much about them. Besides Houston and the Big 12, I don't have a lot of details to go in on both of those teams.
With that in mind, Kansas and the Big 12, if you don't know much about them, what about Arkansas? Because that's the 7-10. Arkansas, I've been talking about how erratic they are. If you watch them play, if you bet on Arkansas, I'm in favor of watching games when you bet on them, but they're like the one team where I'd be like, you know what, just for your health purposes, don't watch them, because they are just unbelievably all over the place. When they're good, they're really good. It's like Calipari. It's like, man, is this Arkansas team? They've won so many really good. They beat Kentucky on the road, dominated them. Anyway, what do you think about this matchup?
Yeah, Arkansas is just like probably the hardest team to predict. They've been completely all over the place, as you've been saying. Kansas definitely fell off a lot for preseason hype. I'm pretty high on the Big 12, and since they're 7-10, I just don't know if I trust Calipari in March that much. So I think I'm going to take Kansas. It's just so hard to predict with Arkansas. I mean, like you said, they've had so many good wins, so many terrible losses. There's no telling for me.
And then St. John's at the bottom of the bracket. They are Omaha. I don't know much about them. Assume St. John's rolls there.
Yeah, I don't like St. John's to go super far, at least from what I've been looking at. I've seen they're a strong defensive team, but I think they're kind of built around one guy offensively. Yeah, so if you shut him down, I think you've got a good chance at controlling them. But they are a Pitino coach team, so
he's great. Pitino's great.
Yeah.
72 cooking with St. John's. All right, well, we ripped through all of them. I was saying on Monday, it's kind of cool. I don't know if they did this last year or not. I'd have to check, but they have the times ready to go. Usually you have to wait like a day. The times
really?
Way. So from a betting standpoint, you know exactly when everybody's going to play. All right, well, what we'll do is we'll reconnect on Monday, Tuesday, sometime next week after the first two rounds and go through the Sweet 16. If you have any strong bets for Thursday and Friday, we'll put them out there on the channel on some individual games. If there's any, as you dig a little bit deeper, and that'll be that. Appreciate you, man. Any final thoughts here before we roll out?
I don't think so, man.
Cool. Well, appreciate you, and good luck on your bracket. Good luck for everybody. I'll see you guys tomorrow morning. I'm gonna do my entire bracket, so do it live with everybody. And yeah. All right. Have a good day, guys.
Cool. Peace.